Good evening. This is Tuesday, February 2nd, meeting of the Community Preservation Act Committee. As a preliminary matter, please note that this meeting is being recorded and some of the attendees are participating by video conference. I guess they are. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and anything you decide to screen share on your computer or anything you broadcast will be captured and recorded. I'm Tim Wheeler, Chairman of the Community Preservation Act Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons are present and can hear me prior to me calling the meeting to order. So we've got Elaine, are you here?
Here, yep.
And MJ?
I better be here.
Yep. Carolyn?
Here.
James?
Yep.
Julie? Eloise, a non-voting member, and we've also got Margaret and June. Thank you. With a quorum of the committee present, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:04. The open meeting of the Community Preservation Act Committee is being conducted remotely with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency. That's enough anyway. Okay, so the meeting's called to order. The first item we've got is the minutes from our last meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at those? Do we have a motion to accept those?
I move we accept the minutes.
Thank you, MJ. A second?
A second.
All right, and we're gonna do a roll call of that. Elaine?
Yeah.
MJ?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yep.
James?
Yep.
Julie?
Yes.
And I'm fine with them. Thank you very much. We wanted to discuss the articles for the budget, and we can review again the work that we did on the preservation plan, see where we are on that. And I'll let you know that we submitted the annual report to the annual report folks, and one change was usually community preservation committees are called community preservation committees. When our warrant voted to create the committee, it called it the Community Preservation Act Committee. So I think internally we'll call ourselves that. When we deal with some state issues, we may on occasion call ourselves just the Community Preservation Committee. Because we've got a capital planning committee, it got confusing. So we'll be the CPA rather than the CPC. But that's been filed, and we attached that comprehensive chart, and they're going to try to include that in the report. And that chart, I think, does a pretty good job of outlining some of the possible ways in which the funds can be expended and some of the ways it can't. I spoke with Stuart last week and had a good conversation with him. And did everybody, I sent around the potential warrant articles for the budget. Did people get those?
Yeah. Tim, did you get my email back about that?
Not yet.
So there's FY21 and FY22. Don't we have to also do an FY20?
Well, FY20, those funds come to the town. They're not matched by the state. The treasurer, the accountant has the authority to place those into the appropriate accounts, 10% into each of the three, and the remainder goes into that general account that we have for CPA. That's my understanding. And I don't believe we have to go to town meeting with an article on that. That's done.
Okay. Yeah, as long as not doing that doesn't
Right.
jam up the funds somehow.
Would you like me to share the motions on the screen?
Sure.
Okay.
And June, that's your sense too, right? You have the authority, because there isn't a committee, to go ahead and deal with that funding that isn't matched by the state and place it into those accounts. You're on mute, June.
That's correct. For the first year, I had the authority to do that.
Awesome.
So for 2021, we're catching up with business that's already occurred to some degree. Those funds that we collected are in our coffers, and the match from the state has been received, and that was received in November. One of the questions I have is that I think Stuart's number, I think June and I are going to try to talk next week sometime, but what we're going to do, I think, is look at Stuart's number that the state has, that they use to create the 68% match, with what we've got on our file. And so these figures that I've used in 2021 are based on the Stewart figures, not June's figures. They're going to be fairly close, but I think we're going to have to tinker with them a little bit. The language that they submitted to us uses the term estimated, and because of the fact that it isn't an estimated amount, it's a known amount, I put that in parentheses. My sense is we're going to take estimated out of this warrant article, because it's a known amount of money. It's not an estimated amount. We're not trying to predict what's going to come in. Is that your sense, June?
Well, I have a question for you looking at this, is that
Yep.
I'm a little confused as far as, because you're calling it fiscal year 21,
Right?
where fiscal year 21 is already happening and we've already done the recap sheet for it.
Right.
So I'm not really sure on because for you to appropriate for fiscal year 21, you would have had to have done this at the last town meeting.
Correct.
Well, so what Stuart is saying to us is you need to have two articles on the warrant, one that deals with 2021 and one that deals with 2022. 2021 captures those funds that need to be, in his mind, put into the different accounts based on the revenue that we received. So you and I have got to figure out some strategy, and maybe we can get him on the phone with us.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to, because it almost sounds like you're trying to duplicate what was already done last year.
Okay, but the money you've allocated already, well, you've done this with the 2021 figures too, though, right?
Well, there's two different things that you guys do. Is one is that you allocate, which means we reserve the dollar amounts into the categories.
Right.
And then you also appropriate money for spending. So I don't know if that's what maybe he means, is that you're going to do two per se articles because you're going to reserve this year's money that's been collected, as in right now we're sitting here and there's like $300,000.
Yep.
That you would take that amount and you would reserve it if you were not planning on spending it. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
like for me, the first year, I just put 10% in each category.
And then the
And
remainder.
balance in the
Right.
reserve to be held for however you. Carolyn,
Yeah.
did you?
Yep. So my understanding from our conversation with Stuart when he was talking about this is that every year we have to, at town meeting, say, kind of put labels on where the money's going to go other than the 10%. So I think this is the only year, just because of the lag, this is the only year we're going to have actual dollar amounts. And every year moving forward, it's always going to be estimated.
Right. Right.
I think this is just, we're cleaning up stuff that should have happened prior, is my understanding of what's going on with this one.
Okay.
And we should definitely confirm that with Stuart and make sure we're doing it the right way. But that's,
Well, so what he gave us this language and said, this is the language to use for your two articles. So I went over that with him again. And what we've got to do is make sure that, so June, when you received the state money this year, the 179,000 or whatever.
97, yep.
Yep. So that money and the money that we generated internally through the surcharge, those you've already divided out into, that's all in your general CPA fund then.
No, for the money that we received, the amount of money in fiscal year 2020 that we put was the first year that it went on the tax bills. In 2020, we collected X amount of money. It was $286,904 came in fiscal year 2020. Because at the annual town meeting, we did not have a committee and they did not say you need to appropriate these funds or reserve, I shouldn't say appropriate, reserve these funds.
Right.
I took it because it was the first year upon myself and put 10% of the physical money that came in for the 2020 receipts. I put 10% in each of the categories, the open space, the historical, and the affordable housing. And the balance of the 200,000 went into a holding account for CPA. And now this year, we have estimated a total amount to come in of approximately the same amount because we didn't have an actual dollar amount. And in this year, which is 2021, we have already collected the 197, which came in from the state, plus an additional 130, say 142,000 that we've actually collected for CPA funding, which current year's new money is 338,000. So at this annual town meeting, you would do, if you chose to, you could suggest what it is that you want to have reserved of the 338,000 into the categories, or you could also move the other 200,000 that was also available from last year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then the state money is in that account as well?
The state money is currently part of that 338,000 that we've collected to date this year.
Okay, and so our objective then is to anticipate what the additional surcharge is going to generate, and then use that as an estimated number for these figures for 2021.
Yes.
And then we've got to look into the future to 2022 and do a similar type of estimate. And Stuart said use a figure similar to what we got from the state in November of 20, assuming that we're going to receive a comparable amount in November of 21.
See, that's my, I don't know if you actually are doing the reserving for 21 or 22.
So we're doing both.
Yeah,
Right,
that,
but
have
what
two-
I'm sorry, go ahead, MJ.
I said, we have two budget articles, so we've got one of them on the screen, but we're trying to do both.
Right, and I'm not sure if per se, this one is, I don't know where this would go into effect. That's my only thing, is that right now, the next round we're working with is the 22.
So what I'll do is, when you and I figure out, what do we talk about? Next Wednesday, maybe?
Yeah, or tomorrow, if you're available, we could probably scoot it in sometime.
Well, if we did it next week, it'd give me a chance to ask Stuart if he wanted
Okay.
to participate. And then we'd really have a handle from him at the same time, which would be helpful to both of us, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, my understanding is really that we're just playing catch up for all of the years that we've had money come in since voting in CPA, but haven't had a committee that designates where the money's going. So I think he made it seem like by law, every fiscal year we have to have a town meeting vote to designate where that money goes. And that
Normally, under normal circumstances, yes, but because it was the first year, that's the only time that I can automatically
Right.
do it. So the
Right.
money is held where
Yep.
it's supposed to be.
Right. So
Right.
this one we're doing to play catch up, and then the next one and every year after, we will have an article like this for the upcoming fiscal year.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not sure on where these dollar amounts are coming from that are in here, that's all.
Got it.
Yeah, these, as I look at these now and reviewing what we're saying, these would have to be modified. And I left the next article for 2022 blank because that's a trickier one. In his mind, you end up looking at what your estimates are going to be, and then you come up with an estimate from what you think the state is going to give you. Again, and he said use a similar figure to what you got the preceding year, given what he knows, because he's seeing increased amounts of revenue going into the CPA account that he's, that the state is managing. So our match ought to be in excess of what we got last year in November. But he said use a similar figure.
We can't just use percentages. They have to be actual figures.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm wondering. Since we're legally obligated to hold a certain percent, why can't we simply ask for the percent? If it's, if it's an estimate and then it's wrong, then we potentially run afoul of the percent we need to hold. So
I would assume that I don't know this for sure, but my guess would be is you could probably still do a percent. The only time you'd actually have real numbers is if you were actually appropriating money to physically be spent.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, while you're not authorizing to spend anything, you would just, you are here on this first one that you have.
Right.
Under the appropriations, but the reserves, you're just setting aside funding that comes in fiscal year. Yeah, see, because we can't put in any money from fiscal year 22 until we're in 22.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm thinking I don't think we need the first one per se, but you guys double check on that.
Okay. So what I'll do is you and I can figure out a time next week, and then I'll see if we can grab him for part of that.
Because I have a different type of a form. I like your form better than the one that I have because I have one that looks like kind of weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. I like your form better.
He gave me that form, so I said, "Oh yes, sir. I'll use yours." Any more questions on that right now? We'll get Stuart involved. Now, the warrant
Open.
closes on the what?
22nd.
22nd.
Mhm.
So we need to discuss 22nd. That's a Monday?
Monday at 5 o'clock, yes.
Second.
I will put placeholders, in, knowing that there's going to be something.
So there's going to be two articles. The format will be similar to what we've given you, and we'll plug in the numbers when we're satisfied. And that doesn't, the fact that we don't have numbers for the 22nd isn't going to bother you. You're fine as long as you know we've got two articles, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. Yes,
Good.
for now, yeah.
Go ahead, June.
Because the other reasoning behind the not having to do two articles is because in the 21 article here, you're actually appropriating funds to the fiscal year 21, which you'll have 1 month to use.
Well, we don't anticipate using them, but the 10% goes into the accounts.
No, I'm talking on the appropriation one.
Okay,
The administrative bit.
Correct, yes.
yeah. Yeah,
But usually that would give you permission to spend the money in the coming year, which the coming year has already happened, so.
doesn't do us any good.
Right.
Good.
Because at the end of the year, I believe whatever you don't use automatically goes back into the fund balance, your fund balance, not the town's.
Right, and I think, you know, that's where this whole notion of being able to put money into that ancillary account, whatever we call it.
Administrative.
The balance,
Undesignated reserve?
the balance, yeah, the
Amazing.
undesignated reserve.
Is that what it is?
And we haven't created one of those at that account yet. And we haven't created an administrative account either. Yeah, so.
And that's what you would have to do at the town meeting, but in this article, is
mhm,
you would have to appropriate those funds.
Yeah, good. All right. Any other questions or comments on the budget?
So in summary, we're still not 100% sure what we're doing, but we'll get it. We know
You're
we're,
way closer than you were.
yeah,
You
well,
are
that's
so
true.
closer. You are-
Stuart is going to be
Wonderful.
able to provide great guidance.
Yeah.
He'll help us
Yeah, well,
through it.
I mean, he and I chatted, and when we were done, he said, you know, you get this. And I said, yeah, I think I do. And then
I think you do too.
I started playing around with the details, and I thought, well, wait a minute, you know, and then of course, you know, we've identified a number of issues this evening that need clarification. So that's the nice thing. We can go back to Stuart, and he's great. He really is.
Yeah.
And he says, you know, he says Margaret's all right too. So
Oh,
had you dealt with him much?
they're such an excellent resource.
Well, and their website's incredible.
It is.
Yeah, I mean,
They're great.
it really is.
Mhm.
Okay, the preservation plan. Anybody got anything to report on meetings? Elaine, you had a historic commission meeting since we met last.
Yeah, and they didn't make any new changes except for just a little bit, and I gave it to Margaret today to post.
Good.
It was just a straightening out some words.
So we're all set on that one. And then Carolyn, you had conversation with conservation before we met the last time. So you're basically, they're all set with what you had.
Yep.
And you and Julie were working on rec, or did you include rec automatically in yours?
I included it and Julie has looked at it, and so we're both good.
So
With-
she blessed it, right?
Yep.
And nice job. And then James,
Oh, and Recreation Committee has a quorum now, so
Yes.
really?
What?
yes, the board appointed 2 more members. They just need to be sworn in and you'll be good to go.
So
Yay.
the minute word leaked out there was money, Julie, you were right.
Damn, I'm telling you, you're right.
Who did you get?
Yeah, James, Mark's on, and then
I thought he wanted to do it. Who was the other person?
Carrie Brooks. So
No.
she has you wouldn't know her. She has a 7th grader and a 4th grader.
Yeah.
Great.
So your kids are not in her loop, but she's
No.
great too. No, not at all. But both great people. They're gonna be awesome.
That's good news.
So we're psyched. Yeah, finally.
Good for holding in, Julie, though. Good for keeping the boat afloat.
Barely, but thank you, Carolyn.
No.
Thank you. I
No, that's good.
appreciate it.
James and
Yes.
and Eloise, if she cares to, you guys are square with what you want to include in the housing section as it stands?
Yeah, I think we're good. We have a main purpose of what we're doing. I'll be interested to see, it's a lot of money, that the way we're using it as, helping people rather than doing big projects. I think it'll be fun to spend the money because it's a lot of money there to help people. So
Well, I went online today and I looked at what Amherst, Boxborough, Lincoln, and Lexington had done with housing.
yeah,
In Amherst's case, and this was all stuff they did last year, Amherst was able to give four $50,000, 0% 30-year deferred payment loans as mortgage subsidies to write down home buying costs for low to moderate income households. Foxborough did rental assistance to aid 12 households for 1 year at $250 a month. Lincoln did a rental assistance program, and Lexington did funding to design affordable housing on property purchased with CPA funds in 2009. So they bought it a decade earlier for housing and conservation purposes, and now they're spending some money for design for the housing. So I mean, there's a good diversity of projects for housing. So
we never talked about that rental assistance, but that might be something to look into because of how high Berlin rents are right now.
Yep.
And there's not many available. So we never talked about the rental assistance, but that may be something. And I like that it has a time limit too.
Yep.
I think that's a good thing. It's kind of like, a year, I think you just said on it. So it's kind of like a step up rather than anything.
Well, in several of the cases with housing, they utilized a third party to help organize and operate the program. So that suggests that we might be able to use the Assabet consortium there if we get in. Are we going to
I
get
was
in?
going to
Martha?
say, any word as to whether we've been accepted or not?
That's the 9th, Margaret.
The 9th, yes.
Cross your fingers. So
Excellent.
Well,
Should we send them cookies or something?
you know what, maybe I'll reach out and see if I can get some insight before the 9th, just as to what
See
they're
what
gonna
kind
do
of
with
cookies they like.
cookies.
Yeah, make sure there are no allergies that we have to account for.
That's right.
I think that's the main thing. We don't want to accidentally send someone into anaphylactic shock
Right.
unless they were going to be voting poorly, and then
Right, right.
Do we do any kind of education program? Is this something, if we see like a tarp on somebody's roof or something, we maybe slip a letter in or something saying these are options for you, or do we not get that involved?
well, I mean, that's not this committee's responsibility. That's the Housing Partnership if they chose to pursue that. I mean, this committee is going to work with Housing Partnership to accomplish their objectives. But their objectives are, we can advise Housing Partnership as to what the possibilities are and give you a sort of a potpourri of different options that other communities have used. So that's the next committee that we have to buoy up, Margaret, is Eloise and Linda working remotely. Or is there anybody else on Housing Partnership right now? That's it?
Trudy, I think.
Oh, Trudy, yeah. So is there a members? How many can you have, Eloise?
Eloise.
There you go.
I believe 5.
Yeah, so now we need to fill that committee that, we
Correct.
put Julie all set. We need to help Eloise out.
Preferably with younger people.
Well, but again, I think that the kinds of things that we're talking about that CPA funds can do will be a draw.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the fact that there's money.
And the
Mhm.
fact
And
that there's
working with
money.
the consortium.
Yeah,
Yep.
I have high hopes for the consortium.
Good.
Did you send them cookies?
No, but I did attend their meeting maybe 8-10 years ago.
Well, that counts.
Huh?
That counts.
Okay.
MJ, you had the introduction and some of the nuts and bolts. How have you made any other modifications, or are you satisfied with where you are?
There are a couple of things that I need to tweak. I just didn't get a chance to in the past since we last met, but it's pretty much all together, I think.
Good. So yeah, if you can continue to work on that, if it's all right with folks, what I'd propose to do is I'll try to supply a tone to the texts of all the different pieces that makes it flow, so it doesn't seem as though it's authored by multiple different factions, but that it's a consistent statement. So I may just, if it's all right with everybody, do some editing that just keeps the purpose and the intent square, but just tries to play with language a little bit. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
So once we get the writing done, are there documents that supporting documents that we need to gather?
Whatever the various town plans are would be good to have for one of the appendices. So I'm not well versed in what all of those are, but pretty much you know the conservation plan, the
housing production plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of those together would be good for inclusion, or at least mentioning where one would get a copy of it. Obviously, if anything is too many pages long, we might not want to include it in its entirety.
Yeah, the conservation one is about that thick.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean,
I just have one question.
sure.
The qualifying, the flow chart for the project funding,
Mhm.
is that going to be on there? Because that's a good, if anyone's,
That's a good point. We'll throw that on there too.
because it's really simple for people to understand.
Yep.
and then, so once we've got all that gathered, I mean, does this get printed anywhere? Is it going to be available just digitally? What happens with this plan after we're done gathering all of everything?
People have thoughts about how they'd like to see it utilized? I haven't paid attention to the website for CPA to see if they've got some sort of criteria that they want you to use in order to follow some guideline, but I can check that. We could make it available in the library when it ever opens again. We can put it in the town clerk's office as another document that they have in the office. We could make sure people know that they could pick it up in paper form if they wanted it, in a couple places like that.
Yeah. Give a copy to 19 Carter, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right. We want to be careful about printing too many if it's going to be a document that changes yearly.
Right. And when you look at, I looked at a couple different towns, and like you've said, it gets updated on an annual basis, and they report what they accomplished the year before and that sort of thing. So it's a fluid document. So yeah, having a bunch of old ones floating around doesn't do us a lot of good.
Right.
What else? That's the main stuff, I think, wasn't it?
I think so for now.
We all have more snow to shovel probably, so.
I got 20,000 steps in today.
Right?
Just shoveling, going back and forth with the snow blower and shoveling, and yeah.
Anybody else? Margaret, do you have any comments you want to make?
I don't have anything else. If you in June schedule a time with Stuart, if I'm available, I'd love to attend too,
Great, okay,
to listen in.
yep.
So
so-
our next meeting,
Yeah, let me just, well, I got June here. Did you say Wednesday at 10 next week? Tentatively, is that what you projected, June?
Yep, that sounds good to me, if you're okay with that.
I am, and I'll chase down Stuart. Margaret, you can make note of that, and then if Stuart says that he can join in, we'll, maybe we can get Margaret to set us up on a Zoom.
Sure, we
I
can
also
set
have
up
the afternoon available too, Tim, if that.
Okay, so Wednesday at 10 or in the afternoon or PM. Okay, good. So we'll do that. Next meeting, yeah, do you want to meet before the warrant closes?
probably not a bad idea.
I think we probably should.
And it closes, I just wrote
22nd.
it down, the 22nd, so,
2 weeks from now would be the
This-
16th.
yep,
How do people look on the 16th?
Fine to me.
Is that the same as the AgCom?
I don't see oh, I don't know. Let me check.
They tend to meet when the planning board is meeting.
which is the 2nd and 4th Tuesday.
Yeah, so, but maybe they're meeting the 16th.
They're meeting on the 9th.
Okay, good.
Oh.
So
Okay, next week. Okay, good.
you don't have to tell Carl that he can't use the computer that night, Elaine. You swap off, right? If there's a conflict, you get it one time and he gets it the next, right?
Well, that failed last week, on the last meeting, so.
So you get the next time.
So we're talking about the 16th, 7 o'clock, still good for everybody?
Are you,
Yep.
are
Yeah,
you doing
but
a February? You're saying?
February.
Margaret.
Yeah. Is
I'm
that
away.
school vacation?
It's the.
Yeah, I'm
selectmen are
gonna be in
meeting that
Vermont.
night, too. Just
Who
throwing
else?
it.
Did someone else say they're not gonna be around?
No, the selectmen are meeting on the 16th because of the Monday's a holiday.
yeah,
That's
and
right, I knew it
I
was
think-
something. Hmm.
the Board of Health is also meeting, so the channels would be booked unless we've got a third one.
You can, oh, I can give Carolyn my Zoom details for account 3, and you could meet on account 3 that night. So
Right.
right now, so we'd have the select board, actually select board, Board of Health and CPAC that
And-
night.
And our objective that night is this, just to agree that we've got the articles that we want for the warrant in terms of the budget. We don't have a heavy agenda, so
Right.
we'll miss you, James, but I think we may go ahead and
That's fine.
Yeah.
I may be able to get in,
we'll leave.
but
a
I don't
blank-
know what's gonna be going on.
We'll leave a blank square on the screen.
With a frowny face on it.
Yeah,
I'll
right.
try my best, but I can't guarantee anything from up there.
No, that's fine. And it, like I said, I wouldn't go out of your way. I'll send you what we agree on ahead of time. And if you've got any questions or issues, then you can let me know. But, because I should be able to get those to you by the end of next week.
Sounds good.
Margaret, I actually do have a quick question. Do we, just any update on the open space plan?
Don't have any, let me
It's
check in with
approved.
CMRPC to see
it's-
if they've heard anything.
It's approved.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. You didn't know
Okay.
that?
No. I mean, maybe John knows. I'm not the chair anymore, so.
And if I got an email and missed it, I apologize.
I think I got an email from, let me look and see if you want to spend one more second. If I can figure out.
It would be nice to be able to include the most recent one, and especially where we're so close.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Let me share this. Oh,
You got one?
yes. And it was from January 8th.
Yeah, it was a
So
while
I'm
ago.
going to share this with Carolyn, you and John, so you all, so everybody has it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And does it have a digital, like, so how do we
It's
get
got the
the
dig-
actual? Okay,
yeah. I think it's got the, well, it's got the letter. I don't see the
All I
entire,
saw was the letter.
yeah, it's got the
I don't
letter.
know.
But
But it was approved.
Excellent. Phew,
So
that
you're
was a
all,
long time in the making.
yeah, it was.
well, every time we sent that chart back to the state, they asked for more.
Yeah, more information.
Yeah, it got
Yeah.
crazy.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and some of the stuff was so old, we were relying solely on Walter's memory.
Yeah, and then I started making stuff up.
Yeah, right.
Well, my father always said when the post office would come to him back in the 50s and say, now, how much oil did you use last year? You know, in their reports, he just put down a figure. And he
Right.
said they didn't care.
No,
And
they just,
that's
yeah.
been my rule of thumb going forward. So
Oh, and the best news of all is this is a 7-year plan, correct?
10.
10. Oh, even
It's
better.
even better. Exactly.
Good.
Yeah.
Woo.
But that's one of the reasons why it was so hard to do, because everybody that was involved in the prior plan was no longer really around.
right.
Mhm.
Which is also why we decided to do it with Central Mass Regional Planning, because they will be around.
Yes.
So that'll make it easier the next time.
Good, good. All right.
Years
All
from now.
set. Margaret, I'll
Awesome.
call you at 9 tomorrow morning. Is that good?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, good. And
Okay.
so we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
right? And a roll call. Elaine,
Yes.
MJ,
Sure.
Yes.
Carolyn.
Yep.
Yeah, June wants me to ask her. James,
Yeah.
Julie,
Yes.
Kim, June, we'd
I
love.
don't count. I don't count.
You count, June, you count.
I don't,
I'll let you know what Stuart says.
okay.
I'll get in touch. Okay, thanks, everybody.
All right,
All right,
thank you.
guys.
Thank you. Good
Good
night,
night.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye, guys.